rethinking what our houses are built for. Now, what I discovered is this man with that infirmity for 38 years, he had more faith in the place than the person. So, he was waiting on stuff instead of waiting on the master. Talk to us about, how COVID-19 has kind of sparked your thought process, not only with youth ministry, but what our houses, what our worship, streaming, like, what do we utilize this opportunity, this platform that God has given us to actually heal, not just worship, but to transform lives?
Hey, doctor, my one of the things that first of all, this hit me hard because I didn't expect that it will happen this way. I'm one of those guys that's like, okay, this will get through. But I do want to share with my family, with my Breath of Life family, that I wasn't tested, but I believe that I had it. I thought it was the flu, but I've never been knocked down this bad before. But what I do recognize over with your line of questioning is that we have to stop depending on tradition. I'm a traditionalist, right? It's even very difficult for me now. I'm learning even now how to even speak without my tie, right? I mean, and this is true. I know some people might laugh at it or be like, what? No, I can't speak without a tie because I'm used to doing that. It's something I'm used to. What COVID is teaching us is that we have to think about what it's like not to deal with the four walls. We have to think about what it's like to do ministry in our neighborhoods, what it's like to do ministry outside of the four walls where it really matters. It's a big wake-up call for me, because then I look back and ask myself the question, are we doing what it is that God has asked us to do, Or was I comfortable with preaching in a church? And was I comfortable in where I was? Now it's a little bit different. Now I have to learn this. Pastor C, you may laugh at this, but I felt that I'm traditional. I felt that being in a church, I needed to step inside of a church to complete my Sabbath. And over the 6, 7, 8 weeks that we've been through this, I'm walking more often. I'm walking 6 miles a day. Most of those times I'm in nature talking to God, having a conversation with God. So COVID has taught me, and I hope it will teach everyone else, that we don't need the four walls to bring us to the kingdom. And you know what I mean by that? I'm not dissing our church. I'm not putting down our church. I'm saying you need to have a relationship with Jesus Christ to bring us to the next level. That's what I'm saying.
Amen. Good stuff. And listen, I've also been going through that transition. This is one of my first times with the tie and everything, because I know some of the saints feel like it might be irreverent to come into the traditional houses of mercy. And so I respect that tradition and that culture, but I do recognize that it's contextual, man, that we got to repurpose and think of how we do church and all that stuff. Can waiting for the right season cause us to entirely miss a blessing that God presents to us, or will God present it to us again? We talk about that certain season begins to trouble the water. If we don't react and address it, then is God just going to wait for us to get ourselves together before that same blessing, or is he just so good that blessing is going to be waiting for us on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday? Talk to us about the right season.
Right. Pastor, we're good at this. We're good at setting up a great program. We're good at bringing in the right music. And you'll see it there. I know you're brand new to Breath of Life, coming out from Jersey. But Breath of Life, for example, and I'm talking to Breath of Life right now as our family. Breath of Life music is always on some other level. You know what I mean? Sometimes we can get tricked in the season of praise teams. Sometimes we can get tricked in the season of a great orator, a preacher, if you will. Sometimes, and that's the reason why you heard me talk about spring, because not only for church life, but even for our personal lives, we kind of wait for a great the sun to shine in order for us to be happy. We be seasonal. Well, I have to admit to you that God does work in season. He'll do anything to get. Now we have to be able to recognize, which he did not recognize. The paralytic didn't recognize who he was talking to. So in the season, don't run away from the season. Be in the season, but recognize who's in the season. That's what he missed. Now, I'm going to say this for those of us who missed Christ in some of the seasons past, that he's faithful and just. He is faithful and just, right? If you think about it, I know I have missed seasons. I have missed healing moments, right? But Pastor Defoe said this one day, and I've been running with it from day one. God rigged the system in order for us to be saved. He's unfair in order for us to be saved. So if it is the season, and we could react in the season, if it's the season and we choose him in the season, it's fine. Just don't feel that it's the season that you need to be looking for the healing of. It's the man in the season that you got to look for.
Good stuff. I like that. Question number 2. Denial can be one of the greatest disabilities correlated with the mental health challenges. How can we motivate friends and family members who are in denial of their mental health condition to take the first steps toward getting professional help? So we know it's mental health awareness. And I was told, Graham, as a segue, that family members, different people, a lot of the individuals that are in some of the hospitals around the country are not just COVID-19 cases, but mental health situations,
Sure.
Attempted suicide, different things like that.
Sure.
People are just not able to adapt totally. So how do we help people get the help that they need? That's the question, I suppose.
I'm gonna start off by saying this. My son, and he doesn't mind me saying this, my son he's 23, he has Asperger's. I didn't pick up that he had Asperger's or start dealing with Asperger's until he was 11. I could have been dealing with this situation since he was 4. Okay? The problem is that I denied, as a black man, that anything was wrong with him. Are you and you understand? I don't want to use the word wrong with him. I want to be careful how I use that he had that specialty that was connected, right? And so what happens is that in order for us, if we're in denial, we'll never get well. We'll never get better. How you deal with a person that's denying it in a family, I'm going to tell you what you have to do. You're going to have to be upfront and remind them every time there is a problem. You do have a problem. You need to take medication. You heard what I said? Medication. Don't jump off your medication for Jesus. Jesus send the medication for you to stay on. But if a person is in denial, they'll never get better. And so for me, I thought I had a brain tumor. Anxiety. I thought I had I thought I had a brain tumor. I thought I had cancer. Something was wrong with my brain. It was a doctor from the Breath of Life Church, that Dr. Washington from the Breath of Life Church, that started to work with me. I was coming in on his off days, and he was introducing me and taking me to different places. Another doctor gave me Valium. I know time is gone, but I want to get this. Another doctor gave me Valium. He said, get off of all of that stuff. I had to go see a therapist, a real therapist. It hurt my heart to see a therapist, because crazy people go to the therapist. Nutty, chewy people go to the therapist as though I thought. Nah. When I went in there, that's where my beginning of healing started, along with eating the right things, etc. If your spouse or if your family member is in denial, you got to keep reminding them. You got to keep saying to them, this is where you are. That's love, if you really love them. But if you sit around and deal with what they're dealing with, you become an enabler for them as they get worse and worse. So don't allow them to be enabler. Get on their nerves. Tell them they got to see some. Tell them that they need to exercise. Tell them they got to see a therapist. Seeing a therapist doesn't mean you're crazy. Seeing a therapist means that you want to be healed. That's it.
Thank you. That's a stigma that continues to persist within our community.
Sure.
That there's something inherently bad. If you broke your leg, you wouldn't feel ashamed to go to the hospital to get your leg fixed.
That's right.
But if I have some mental issues, so what we're saying, Graham, is that prayer and fasting alone might not be what you need. Like, I'm praying on it, like my mental health. Are you saying that prayer alone is sufficient? I don't have the faith, Pastor Graham, to get. Why do I need to go to a therapist? I'm praying on it. I'm fasting.
Rise, take up your bed, and walk. They're all actions, right? Prayer is not an action. You heard what I said? Prayer is not an action. Prayer is a conversation that you're having with God. We have been fooled in tradition that prayer is something bigger than what it is. Prayer is the conversation that you're having with God. But remember now, after you pray, you're supposed to listen to him. We don't even listen to him after we pray. We treat him as though he's a grocery store. We go to aisle 3 for whatever we want, right? But it's a different story when it comes to that. When Jesus came to this man, good example, when Jesus came to this man, do you want to be healed? Him talking back to him is prayer. Jesus says, rise, pick up your bed, and walk. Going to the therapist is one of those movements. Rising up and going, right? Pick up your bed and go. Walk to the therapist. Do whatever you need to do to be healed. That's right. So I'm going to tell you, it's not prayer alone. Prayer is one part of it. The next part of it is to walk and get to place and get yourself better.
When Jesus says, take up your bed, he was being obedient. He was walking in faith, but he was breaking tradition. So talk to us about the stigma that sometimes comes with healing. You know, this was his testimony. Jesus wanted him not to hide it under a bushel, but use it as an instrument, a conduit of conversation piece, as it were. Why are we so ashamed in the Adventist church about what we've gone through, what we've been through our testimony? Is that something wrong? Because we're supposed to be the remnant people of God, and yet you're asking me to walk with my bed. I want to get beyond that. I'm tired of people associating me with, etc., fill in the blank. How do we get past that? Talk to us about taking up our beds.
Let me tell you something. I have another study that I do coming out of Judges chapter 6. If you read the first couple of verses of Judges chapter 6, there's 3 things that it says. It says, 1, the people did evil in the sight of God. Number 2, he gave them up to the Midianites. Number 3, the people cried out to God, and after they cried out to God, God heard their cry and delivered them. That's another sermon altogether. Matter of fact, I think I did that at Breath of Life before. What the point why that sticks with me is because just what you said just now, we don't know how to cry out. We don't know how to celebrate Jesus. We don't know how to celebrate healing. And what we have to recognize is that when this man was healed, the reason why he had to walk with his bed is because it was a part of his testimony. You see, let me tell you, Colby, I've done wrong things. I've done things that's always going to stick with me for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life. Though I'm healed, though I'm in the right direction, or though I believe that I'm safe, and I'm not talking first day-ish here now. You understand? That's what I mean by tradition now. We don't want to say certain words. No, I choose to be lost or saved. That's the power of God. I choose to be lost or saved. So therefore, God has rigged the system for me to be saved. I choose not to. So go back to your point. Traditionally, it locks us in to wanting to be healed the way everybody else is healed. Your encounter is going to be different than everybody else's encounter. Your being healed is going to be different. This lady with the issue of blood had to reach out and touch the hem of his garment in order for herself to be healed. While she was never allowed with an issue of blood to even be in the vicinity. Are you getting where I'm going with that? I'm saying that if she went along with tradition, she would have never been healed, because a woman who's going through what she's going through in the law of Moses cannot be around men, cannot be in public. So therefore, just like our tradition states for us, we got to learn how to break tradition, because tradition is for the people who have already died. You get where I'm going with that? So for me, I brought up that Judges 6 is because now I got to learn how to shout. I don't want to preach like Colby. I don't want to preach like T.D. Jakes. I don't want to be like President Fordham. I don't want to be like them anymore. Once I've been healed now, going back to 1 Samuel 17, I want to fight in my own armor. And when you fight in your own armor, like David fought in his own armor, what ends up happening with you is that people see Christ in you, and that's the testimony. That's the healing that they need to see through. So what we have to do is learn to break the system of traditionalism and learn to follow the Spirit of God, and the Spirit of God is healing. I'm sorry, you made me preach again. My bad.
Look, man, we having a good time. I'm being told we just have room enough for like one more question.
That's fine.
I love the example that you gave at the end. We talk about nose blind. You a brave brother, man. But listen, we get nose blind to a lot of stuff, you know, in ministry, you know, within church, within our family. There generations of nose blind stuff that families are immune to. And you step in the family and people just talking to each other crazy. You like, hold up, did they just say? But it's amazing what we get accustomed to. So my question is, how do we break through that wall of apathy that sometimes exists within our churches that prevents that cooperation, that healing, that love? You know, we're just, every church culture, every family, there's that nose blind stuff that we just get used to.
Listen, and I'm saying this because we're friends. The last pastor of Breath of Life, we were friends. The last pastor of Breath of Life before him, he was a mentor of mine. The last pastor before him,
Dr. Harris, you had
before Harris was Uncle Bobby, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm talking to you personally on this. The reason why I'm saying I'm saying this to you is because God is coming back for a church that could be able to recognize sin and call it out by their right name. The reason why I don't call sin out by its right name is because I like the sin and I don't want God to be in my territory during that time. I don't want God encroaching on me, because if he encroach on me, then that means I have to change. Are you getting where I'm going with that? As far as I'm going with that. So what happens, I get used to it. I get used to being nose blind. So our church is used to, for example, this is nose blind, but in a certain way, in traditionalism, the Lord is in his holy temple, let all the earth keep silence before him. Then we walk into the church all together, and then we kneel down and pray. And then it seems like then that's when the Holy Spirit shows up, when the Holy Spirit been here since Sabbath school. You get what I'm saying? And then if
Friday evening.
From Friday evening, right? He's already been there, right? And then from 11 o'clock, we start church at 11 o'clock. And we call that high day, like the Muslims call it the high day, right? So 11 o'clock worship hour, like 11 o'clock is more holier than any other time, that if we moved it from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, all of a sudden there'll be a problem. Nose blind. We're nose blind to tradition. You don't have to have an altar call with music playing in the background. You can have an altar call simply by asking somebody, do you want to be healed? That's an altar call right there on the spot, right? So we have gotten into all of that. Like right now, we got many churches now who are having Sabbath school after 11 o'clock or after what we're doing right now. Is it permissible? Yes, it's permissible. It can happen that way. God is teaching us to break out of the mold of tradition so that we could do ministry better. We do everything on Saturday. That's why we don't rest on Sabbath, because we do everything on Saturday. You know, we got 6 other days that we could do stuff for ministry's sake. So what we have to do, not only nose blind to sin, but we're nose blind to tradition. what I'm asking for Breath of Life to do, and I love it that you're there. Your last place that you were there for 9 years. We could become nose blind to the things that is going on and do the same old, same old. COVID has allowed us to smell the smell the postum. Smell the postum. I just want to tell you that's what sure, of course. And one thing I have to say about AEC, they meet constantly. The administration is really working together to make sure that everyone is safe. We're not following the country. We're not doing what they say. We want to keep our people safe as much as we can. And one thing I say, just go to visit AEC.com. Everything is there. Sometimes we don't have it. Sometimes I'm pushing ministry so much that I don't tell people, go check out that site. Today at 3:00, I believe there's going to be a discussion with the 3 doctors that's discussing what's going on. And now this children's thing, there's a new children outbreak when it comes to COVID. So we have to be careful to all that. Do the best that you can to check out that website, visit AEC.com, so that you have .org. Both of them works, but .org, so that you could see what's actually going on as far as this COVID is concerned. Now, I'll plug me, and the reason why I say Dave Defoe is because we're working together, because I believe youth and children and families are together, along with education. What I want to plug with this is that we have to find new ways of doing old things. And I'm not blowing up Breath of Life, but every time we come up with a resource, Breath of Life is on top of it. Every time, and Breath of Life is almost my lab. And I'm not just saying that, I won't say it. Breath of Life is like my lab. I try things with them. I get things from what they do with children's ministry and spread it throughout the conference. Not just this church, but Breath of Life is a lab. You're in a great spot, Doc, and I just want you to know that those of us also who are going through anxiety, I was doing well until about last week, but I have to firm up my trust in God. That's where I am. I have to firm up my trust in God and realize that He's running everything. Stay close to the website. Stay close to what we have to offer. And I'll be honest with you, Breath of Life, you're already doing it. You're doing what you're doing.